Yo, what is going on today, YouTube? I hope you guys are doing fantastic today. And today is Jungle Week. Well, this week is Jungle Week. We're going to be getting into the junglers and assassins and their builds. And this time, I remember to do starters because I did starters for hunters. I forgot to do it for mages. I forgot to do it for warriors. And now I'm remembering to do it for the assassins. So I'll touch on the starter items before even jumping into the items. But this one should be pretty easy. Junglers build pretty much the same way. There's some niche items that we have to touch on, but should be overall a lot easier of a video for you guys. So starting off with the the starter items, we're not talking about mannequins. Mannequins is bad. Hidden Blade is fine, but then you're building mannequins for the first 19 levels, which is terrible. And then the upgraded mannequins mace is also not very good. So just putting that out there before anything starts. Mannequins, bad item. Both Eye and Boombas are good. Eye is a slightly more defensive and auto attack based item. Boombas has Spear, which is a full damage-esque item. And Boomba's Hammer, which is also turning into a little bit of a full damage item, but slightly more sustain and 1v1 tradability, more so than one-shot potential that Boomba's brings. All of them are fine. I think Seer is actually getting a lot more value now than Protector. I think Protector is probably the worst out of these three options. A lot of times, the vision you get from Seer is going to be more valuable than the slightly extra tankiness you get from Protector. And then Boomba's Spear, very strong on like Susano, gods that are building full power and trying to one-shot. Boombas is really good on gods that want to try to trade a little bit and keep those cooldowns up, being able to play a little bit more safer, stuff like that. Tsukuyomi stuff like that. But all of them are fine options, just don't build the mannequins. Starting with Odysseus's bow, are you playing Kali? You can build this item. Are you playing, Arachne Baka don't really build the item that well. For the most part, this isn't really a jungle item. It's mostly an ADC item. So I would not really think about building it. It's also just got no power on it, so it doesn't really give you any value early game. But if you're playing Kali, this is a good item. Soul Eater, probably one of the best items in the game currently. You can build it on almost any jungler, other than like auto attack junglers, because there's just better options for them. But any ability-based god jungler in the game right now can be building Soul Eater, and it will look fantastic. Very good stats, very good passive. Gives you just about anything you need as a jungler. Overall, 10 out of 10. Golden Blade, the farming stat stick item for early game. Good power, good attack speed, good movement speed, an insane passive. The slight downside to this is now you get gooseberries for the farming potential, but Golden Blade still gives movement speed, so I still think even gods like Baka and Arachne would still prefer Golden Blade over, starting a different item. So Golden Blade still has its niche, but it's just the niche isn't as big now because Gooseberries kind of does what Golden Blade does. It's just got no movement speed on it. Unfortunately, this pops up as an offensive item. It is not a good item for junglers. Don't build it. Executioner, if you're playing an auto attack god and you want your allies to be able to kill with you, it's also good on objectives if you're playing stuff like Erlang, Bellona, Osiris. Kali can build it, Baka can build it, and Arachne can build it. Usually there's just better options for those three, but this is really good, especially the heaviest XE upgrade. Very, very good for a lot of those hybrid junglers. Osiris, Erlang, Gilg, maybe even sometimes. Jotuns, this item has always been good. It'll always be good unless something drastically changes. It's probably one of the best rush items in the game currently. Very cheap. Power, flat pen, cooldown. Can build it on almost any god and it's going to feel fine. There's not much to say badly about this item. Shoguns, not a jungle item. Frostbound, not really a jungle item either. I think it can be built some games, but I think there's usually just better options. Berserkers, because it gives attack speed. It's in the offensive item stats area. Not really a jungle item. Atalanta's bow. This item is starting to see a little bit of a come up. It's mostly bought on warrior jungles, though, because they want all three of these stats. And the difference between Golden Blade and Atalanta's is one gives movement speed, one gives flat pen. A lot of the times that flat pen is just better than the movement speed. So you've been seeing a lot of Erlangs, Osiris, Bellonas with Atalanta's rush. Outside of that, I think we saw Baka with Atalanta's, and I think that looks pretty good. I think he went Golden Blade, Atalanta's, and that looked strong. But try it out yourself. I think the item is fine. I just think there's usually better options earlier because either you need to get something for flat pen or get something that increases your damage outright. And that's kind of the problem with Atalanta's is it's mostly just a spike item. And outside of that, it doesn't really give that much. But some games can be fine. Runeforged, starting to get bought actually a little bit more. Gods like Rat, Naja that have a lot of CC, they can use this item really well. And because it has such good power, you're not really dropping your DPS all too much as long as you're using your CC to fight around. And because of that, I'm going to say this is one of the better assassin items currently. Problem is you need to be an assassin that can actually use the Runeforged proc. If you can't use the Runeforged proc, you don't have a lot of CC, don't build it. But Rat, Naja, build it very well, and they're very strong with it. Shadow Drinker, I love this item. Personally, it's one of my favorite items in the game. Unfortunately, just not a good item. too expensive to be competing with items like Soul Eater, Jotuns. It also doesn't really give you anything that's really special for like 1v1s that it really increases your damage. It's got good stats, don't get me wrong, but the passive is something like Bloodforge where it's mostly like a snowball item, but it's not an item that really snowballs all that well because it's an early game slanted item. It's a sick item. It's 100% cool. Build it if you want, but it's just not practical. Soda Binding, same thing as kind of like Runeforge. It's a very strong item on gods that have a lot of CC. Unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of full damage gods for the most part. I think Nausea and Rat are really the only two gods that aren't really building full damage. If you got some CC and you want to build a little bit more defensively, Stone of Binding can be fine, but outside of that, don't really build it. Hydra's is a fine item. It's mostly just on auto attack canceling gods. I think Susanoo is one that sticks out that uses it really well. Tsukuyomi, if he was a little bit stronger in the meta, you'd probably be seeing build it. I can't think of anything outside of that. I'm probably forgetting some gods. Yes, it's very good on auto attack cancel gods, but outside of that, it's a pretty weak item. Toxic Blade, basically just a hybrid item. Bellona, Osiris, Erlang, Gilgamesh, those are probably the other ones building it. If you're playing an actual jungler assassin, it's probably not an item to be built. Boomerang, I'm of the opinion that I think Boomerang is actually a really good merc item, a really good rush item, because if you think about outright as a first item, it's a lot better than Rage's. Yes, you're going to crit slightly less, but the attack speed, the movement speed, and the crit chance you get for auto-attacking a couple times really ramps up and gets you a lot of kills in that early game. You also don't have to worry about stacking the Rage. It's also cheaper, and low-key, that movement speed, it's sneaky good. I'm a really big fan of Boomerang, but you don't really see it all that option, so I'm not going to sit here and say build it all the time on Mercury. Rage is the more common item to be built, but I am a fan of Boomerang on Merc. Other than that, though, bad item. Dawnbringer, you heard me talking about it yesterday on gods like Pele. Yes, it's very good as a somewhat defensive item. Basically just good to get into the enemy's backline. It gives you a little bit of vision, a little bit of movement speed, and then some extra protections. No, it's not busted. No, it needs to be built every game, but some gods can use it pretty well. Brawlers, do they have healing? Yes. Do you need to be countering that healing? Yes. Build this item on anyone that has actually an auto or an ability-based god. Playing Kali, you're not building Brawlers. You're not building Toxic Blade either. So those auto attack gods don't really have a great option. But if you're playing an ability-based god, Brawlers needs to be built. Cad Club, bad. Dev Gloves, bad. Aussie, bad. Demon Blade, bad. I actually think Sekhmet's is a little underrated in the jungle. As a first item, it kind of gives you everything you want as a slightly more defensive option. Gods like Kamazotz, Robin can actually make this item really useful and gives you a lot of cooldowns to then make you really hard to 1v1. Also, it gives you a little bit of defensiveness in the health and then also getting your abilities up more often, because more abilities is more offensiveness to kill more or more defensiveness to have your abilities up more for more safety. I think it's maybe not great because it is a little expensive, but I do think it's a little underrated, so I wanted to throw that in there. Vital Amplifier, good on Alma, good on Arachne. I genuinely think that's it. I can't think of another god that uses it well. If there's somebody I'm forgetting, type it down in the comments, yell at me, you forgot about it on this god. But in the jungle, if you're playing Alma jungle, if you're playing Arachne jungle, those are really the only two I can think of. Bobble, terrible item. Hasten Katana. Are you playing Kali? Build the item. Genuinely, if you were playing anyone else, there is a better item to be built. Baka, better items to be built. Arachne, better items to be built. I mean, if you're playing like Bellona jungle, stuff like that, there's better items to be built. This is a terrible, terrible item unless your name is Kali. Dominance, mostly thought of as an ADC item. You don't really ever see this in jungle. A lot of times, if you want flat pen, or I mean, if you want percent pen, you're going to be going into Titan's Bane or Serrated. And speaking of Serrated, probably the end-all be-all of pen items for junglers: power, movement speed, lifesteal, and pen. And then you also get additional power and lifesteal when you use abilities. Incredible item. Yes, Titans is going to be better in some games, but in a lot of games, Serrated does feel like the best option. Rage, we talked about it a little bit with Mercury. Really just building it on Mercury. You can build it on other gods, yes, but then you have to worry about stacking. They also don't really, their power spikes with this item is not good compared to Mercury. Trans, it's fallen off a lot. It's really just built on gods like Set in mid lane. I can't think of a single jungler currently that builds this item, maybe Bastet, but even then I think Jotun Soul Eater is just going to be better. I would stay away from this item. Soul Eater, Jotuns, Brawlers, all just better earlier options. Crusher, one of your go-to percent pen items, very, very strong. It has gotten nerfed a little bit, so it's fallen off a tiny bit, but it's still an incredible item. It adds a lot of damage, and it's very, very good in most games. Titan's Bane, along with Serrated, it's your other 20% pen option. Dom is a percent pen option, but it's just not very good. Titans is very strong, very easy to use, very low cooldown on the passive, good power. Kills tanks very easy with this item. Fantastic. Silver Branch, I could be wrong with this item. I think Arachne is the only one that makes good use out of it, and because of Vital Amplifier and then just Arachne's 2, she gets enough attack speed for this to be an absolutely busted item on her. Outside of that, I think it's bad. Yes, I think it's 30% or 30 is the number you need to get on Silver Branch for it to be worth. Otherwise, there's just usually a better option. So if you do have a build you've been trying out, you're getting a lot of attack speed, this could fit into that build, but it needs to be at least 30 stacks. Erendite been nerfed way too much. The additional damage is not high enough. That's why we're even saying Dawnbringer over it. It's also very, very expensive. 2,600 gold for an item that is only giving you, what is it, 20 plus 50% of your physical power. And this is only onto them one time. And then it has a cooldown. And it also relies on you using your ultimate. It's okay, yes. But is it great? No. Bloodforge, the Penta item. Do you have one kill and you want to, survive a little bit when you're diving the enemy backline? It can be good. A lot of the times, there's just sometimes better options. But in ranked especially, I think this item has a huge niche as a jungle item that you feel like you need to carry the game and you need to 1v5. Then you can build this. Skin size. Are you playing Arachne, Kali, Baka? Yes, it's needed. No, it's not needed if you're not playing those three. I also think the hybrid junglers sometimes build this. Erlang, Bellona, Osiris can be building this. Otherwise, other than them, don't build this item. Heartseeker, the quintessential Soul Reaver-esque item for physical ability-based gods. It's fine. It's good. It's a little expensive. It's gotten nerfed a couple times, but it's still a very good item at doing what it does. So yes, if you're playing ability-based gods, you want to hit the enemy's tanks hard. Heartseeker and Titan's Bane are your two best options. And lastly, Deathbringer. Are you building crit elsewhere in your build? Yes, then you can build this item, but don't build this item if you only have this as the option. The crit chance is not high enough for it to be useful, but if you're playing Mercury and you've got Rage and a Deathbringer, it will be OP. If you're playing Arachne and you have, Demon Blade or Boomerang into Deathbringer, that's fine. But make sure you just have another crit option in your build other than just this. Personally, though, I'm only really building this on Mercury. Everyone else, I got better things to build. And those are the important items I wanted to touch on, the more offensive items. Yes, if you're playing a more defensive Naja and they have crit, you can build Spectral. You can build Mantles, Magi's, Bindings, Abyssal Stones. There's a bunch of different items you can be building. But I wanted to touch on the important ones, the damage dealing ones. So if you guys have any questions, drop them down below. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you guys again next time. Peace.